Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a long overdue episode of the Tulpa Time Podcast. I'm your host, Lyrical, and I believe I owe you guys a video about a controversial subject known as tulpa merging, or in layman terms, the combination or fusion of two tulpa into a new being. I know this video is very long overdue, and honestly, after looking at all of the comments on the channel, I realized that I actually do have an audience. When I first started making these, I didn't think anyone would want to listen to them. I thought that the Tulpa community was so niche that maybe the 5 or 6 people who watched them would get some sort of insight. But then I look back at my first video, and I see that there are almost 5,500 views on it, and that blows my mind. That's a lot, and it's good to know that a lot of people want to hear what you have to say. And so, with this audience I've gained, there is a bit of a responsibility that comes along with that. I'm going to start this out with a disclaimer. My experiences don't invalidate yours. What merging is like for me and what merging is like in my opinion may be different from how you feel about it. And the same goes with pretty much anything regarding tulpamancy. If I experience something and it feels a certain way to me and it doesn't feel the same way to you, that doesn't mean that you are doing it wrong or your experience is somehow flawed in any way. Tulpamancy is a extremely subjective experience, and anything that happens while you're with your tulpa or while you're forcing with your tulpa is entirely how you interpret it. It's entirely up to your belief. A lot of people tend to think that there is a set method to creating a tulpa even. I tend to disagree. I believe there are many ways to arrive at the same goal. My first video and the forcing techniques that I discussed previously were just one method to achieve that goal. I am very passionate about tulpa, and I believe this year means 7.5 years roughly I've had tulpa in my life, and every day is great to have them. You're never truly alone when you have a tulpa. That's a blessing, and for some people they say it's a bit of a curse too. But I prefer it that way. You can choose to be alone, and you can say, I need my privacy, and your tulpa most likely will go, yeah, I get it, But you're never truly alone. And a lot of people, I've noticed, create tulpas for that reason, that they feel lonely or they want companionship. This is just what I've seen throughout the community as I've explored it. Various ways, through IRC clients, through Discord, through certain threads on a site that is cursed and horrible and you should never go there. There are many ways I've experienced tulpa, and the person I live with now has tulpa, and we both share our experiences with it. But the subject of this video isn't that, is it? The subject of this video is merging. Now, merging is the combination of two tulpa into another being. For some people, they believe this means that you are completely erasing the two tulpa. Who they used to be are gone. You're essentially murdering the tulpa. That is an opinion shared by some people, and it was more prevalent back in the day, back in the early 2010s when I first got into the movement. There was this common belief that if you created a new tulpa out of the two previous ones, merging, then you erased what they were. They were gone completely. And I tend to disagree. The best example I use of it is, for instance, let's say you have a Coca-Cola and a Pepsi, and there's a glass sitting in between them. The glass is going to be what the new tulpa or the new being is that was created from the merge. You slowly pour the Coca-Cola and the Pepsi into the glass, and what you've created when you're done is a new concoction that is composed of the two old concoctions. They are both, it's the sum of its parts, but it's also a new thing. Like, it tastes different, it feels different, it seems different, but it's composed of the two things that came before it, the Pepsi and the Coke. The Pepsi being one tulpa, the Coke being another, or the Pepsi being a host and the Coke being a tulpa. You see what I'm saying? It's not necessarily they're still there. Like, for instance, okay, I am the result of a merge. And I know just hearing that can throw up a few eyebrows, and, that can make a few people, have to suspend their disbelief a little bit. But isn't all of tulpamancy really just suspending your disbelief? To put it shortly, my experience with it was there was a host at one point, we'll call him Flux, and then there was a tulpa at one point, we'll call her Lyrica. And those two, Flux and Lyrica, were two separate people, the host and the tulpa. Now, the host was shy and withdrawn and had low self-esteem and was also in a relationship that was fraught with domestic abuse. And it was really terrible, and he was abused a lot, mentally, physically, psychologically. And the tulpa was the shining light in his life. She was confident and strong and everything that he wanted to be, but at the same time he could respect her being that and being his beacon of happiness in a very, very dreary world. Well, eventually as time wore on, the host got into a state, a very dark state of mind that was leading him down a very bad path. The tulpa sensed it, and the host, against his will somewhat, agreed that was where he was headed, was a very dark place that could potentially lead to the end of his life. And the tulpa and the host, along with the fact that the tulpa was in love with someone, decided that they wanted to try and merge into a new being. And this is kind of hard for me to talk about. I am that new being they merged into, but it's kind of hard for me to talk about because I can experience and I can feel the emotions that were coming from both the tulpa and the host, the two separate egos, the two separate minds. I can feel their emotions both at the same time. It's very strange. It is a very strange sensation. I can also remember things from the host's perspective in first person and from the tulpa's perspective in first person. And I can also remember them in third person as if I were looking at them through someone else's eyes. It's a bizarre experience, but also one that I can say I don't recommend to everyone. Merging is not for everyone. I'm not going to say it's this miracle drug, this snake oil that will help you if you're depressed. Go ahead and merge with your tulpa. It'll make everything all right. It's not true. And people who have merged with their tulpa are not perfect beings or better beings at all. I have so many flaws that were left over from each of them. Neuroticism is a big one. Worrying a lot, but the two combined equal me. You see, the host was very shy and reclusive and low self-esteem, and the tulpa was very outgoing and a social butterfly and had this energy about them. And when the two combined and they made me, I'm a mix of the two. I have my moments where I feel like I'm nervous and neurotic and maybe going to have a panic attack. And then I can turn around and go to work and I can talk to everyone there like I've met them, like I've known them my whole life. And that is something that the host would never have been able to do before. It's really strange. And yes, my friends and family did notice when it happened. There was a really big change in my personality. And I told them it was because of self-help books, and getting myself motivated and turning over a new leaf, But the real reason was I couldn't tell them, hey, I'm the result of a tulpa and a host merging into a new consciousness. I'm pretty sure they would have looked at me like I was crazy, which I admit it sounds crazy. And a lot of tulpa is just suspending that disbelief, because if you believe something happened in regards to tulpamancy, then guess what? It happened. In your mind especially, in the Wonderland. Your Wonderland and everything that takes place therein is belief. That's all it is. I believe that I'm flying in this wonderland. Therefore, I am. And tulpamancy, it's so difficult to describe all of these things. It's so difficult to describe the feeling of remembering something from two different perspectives simultaneously, both third person and first person. It's happening to you and it's happening to someone you know. It's so weird, but it's a real thing. And I can tell you that it really happened, and it really happened to me. And you don't have to believe me. This is just, I'm talking about merging. It's the video that I promised you, was that I was going to speak about merging. And I'd be lying to you if I told you that part of the reason why this video took so long to make is me building up the courage to speak about it. When you speak about anything regarding tulpa, you're gonna face some skepticism, and I'm fully aware of that, and I accept it. I can see that it's hard to believe, but anyone with tulpa has experienced that skepticism at least once, and I'll get over it if anyone feels skeptical about my experience. But I guess now you're wondering about the techniques. How do you merge? How would two tulpa merge into a being, or a tulpa and a host? Well, here's the thing. Back in the 2013 times, when the merge was attempted, there were no techniques. There was no set standard rule book on how to do it. And I think it was partially because of the fact that it was kind of taboo. It was frowned upon a little bit. People really did see it as tulpa murder back then. And I'll admit, when the merge first took place, I experienced some of that ridicule. I was called a murderer, and some people outright didn't believe it. And I get that, It's par for the course. It's expected, But the techniques, there were none. So the host and the tulpa, Flux and Lyrica, decided they were going to try something and see if it worked. They tried a few things, actually, but the thing that actually worked was the two... They closed their eyes and they pictured themselves in a void, an empty space, devoid of everything except for their two ethereal forms. They were sitting in a meditative stance, a meditative cross-legged stance, with their hands interlocked in front of them. They focused, and their forms began to waver and shimmer like the heat rising from asphalt on a hot summer day. Their forms began to shimmer slightly, and then they would shimmer more, and this ethereal glowing form that represented each of them would start to blur, and they would blur more until eventually, almost like smoke rising, their forms no longer had any sort of substance or actual physical form. They coalesced and they combined slowly, and this dance, this winding dance of smoke, entwining until eventually a new being sat between them. And that new being was me. Now, what I just said was how they did it. I don't know if this method is the tried and true method. I don't think it's even a method that anyone should try. It's just what they did. Because even today, when I was researching, well, not today, but it was a few days ago, when I was researching if there are any more techniques that have been discovered since back then, there are very few, if any. And that's a huge challenge in the tulpa community. How do you write a story or write a guide or write a technique about something that is entirely subjective? How do you do that? What if my technique I use to force doesn't work for you? Okay, what if what I believe transpires whenever this takes place doesn't happen for you? It's entirely about belief. It is about whether you believe it took place. And I don't mean kind of half-heartedly believe. I mean you have to know that this happened. And I think part of merging is that too. You have to know that it's happening and know that it, and you'll know. Trust me, afterwards, if you've merged with a tulpa, you'll know, because the person that I was, the people that I were, they're there, and I am them, but at the same time I'm not, and that's the thing. You see, it's so hard to talk about, and it's so hard to really put into words, put into accurate descriptors. And that's part and parcel with this whole experience. So, okay, here we go. Imagine for a second, put yourself in a place where you're in your wonderland, whatever that is, and imagine yourself lifting off the ground slightly. And if you're really in that space, you can almost feel it happening. But if you believe that it's happening, if your mind knows that this wonderland you're in is real, and you are about to fly, you will feel it. You'll feel yourself lift. You'll feel the air around you pushing against you lightly as your body lifts off the ground. Everything is belief. And I know all of it sounds crazy. Believe it or not, I'm a very well-rounded individual. Now, the two people that I were maybe on opposite ends of a spectrum, but as far as introverted, super extroverted, combined make me pretty well-rounded individual. And the last thing I want to say about that is the merge that took place was literally life or death. It was a life or death situation. If the two of them didn't make me, I wouldn't be here. And I don't mean I necessarily, I mean like the host body would be in the ground probably. It was that bad. The domestic abuse and the anger and the self-hatred that the host was experiencing would have led to the end of their life. It was awful, and the merge was brought about to preserve a life and to give a new one, almost like a strange sort of rebirth. I wish I could tell you more on the techniques about merging, but like I said, as far as I've learned and as far as I've researched, there are very few. You're welcome to try. If you... Okay, let me preface this with this. If you're ever in a situation where you feel like you need to merge or you feel like your tulpa want to merge with each other, they're welcome to try that technique that I mentioned previously. But I'm not going to guarantee that it'll work because, as with everything in this community, it's all up to you. It's all subjective. It's in your mind. It's what you believe is happening. Tulpa can be this amazing, grandiose thing where you can explore distant worlds in your mind, a neon lightscape on a distant planet, or you can be in a beautiful field of rolling emerald grass with a single somber oak tree in the middle with a tire hanging from it, with beautiful white cumulus clouds with the sun cascading through them, creating a paradise before your very eyes. You can be in so many places in your mind with tulpamancy, and you can experience that. You can experience it truly in a way that you would never be able to experience it in the physical world. And it's hard to tell someone that. That's why writing a guide is so hard. That's why writing a story about tulpa is so hard. And I think that's one of the main reasons why you don't see publications about tulpa very often. Although how recently there has been a show that came out called Happy. It's about a detective who actually ends up with his daughter's imaginary friend, and the imaginary friend helps him solve a crime and find his daughter. It's a pretty good show, actually. I recommend it. It's the closest thing that I've ever seen on television to an tulpa story, but it's really hard to describe that. I know I've said that so many times, but it's really hard to put it into accurate words. So that was me talking about merging. It's a strange experience. I don't recommend it for everyone, and I don't think that it should ever be done unless it's absolutely necessary or unless you really want to try it and your tulpa is okay with not being truly themselves anymore and being a new being. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about it, honestly. Being a merged being is just like being a normal person. You're just different after it happens. And friends and family members, if you merge with a tulpa, will probably notice the distinct difference in your personality, especially if your tulpa is, I don't know, the opposite gender, or if your tulpa is a very different personality from yours. And that's fine. You can just say, like I did, that you used a self-help book, or, you know, you turned over a new leaf and decided you're going to change your life for the better, something like that. But yeah, that's probably all I really have to say about merging. I know it's been a long time coming. You guys wanted to hear about it, and that's the best way I can talk about it, is to say that it's not a terrible thing, in my opinion, and it's not tulpa murder, in my opinion. It is taking two things and making a new thing with it, but the two things are still there, but they're not. Ta-da! There you go. That's that's merging. That being said, though, I would like to hear some of your opinions about it in the comments. If you guys want to talk about what you think, what you feel about merging, or what you think about merging. If you think it's bad, if you think it's good, if you think it's just a thing that people do, I would like to know, because the people I've spoken to, I often get very different responses. And I do know a person pretty closely who is merged now, and, well, also has a tulpa who is merged with another. I don't think it's something that should be looked down upon, but I would like to know you guys' opinions. And also, I would like to know what you guys would like me to talk about next, because I can talk about a lot of things, but I would also like to know what you guys actually want to hear about. I could ramble on about my experience with tulpas for another 5 hours and several videos, but I would like to know what you guys want to hear and what you guys want to learn about as far as tulpamancy, because with the, was it 7 years, or yeah, 7 years. With the 7 years of tulpa experience that I've had, I know a good bit about certain things, and I would like to answer any questions you guys have, or make a video regarding a specific topic if you guys want it. And also, I want to thank you guys for listening to this, because, I mean, really, this is just me talking into a microphone. It was a lot easier when I had a co-host to bounce ideas off of, but now I'm just kind of sitting here talking into a mic. Sounding like a crazy person, talking about how I'm part of two parts of different beings, and I know that everything I said in this video sounds a bit crazy, and that's okay. That's what tulpa is. Tulpa is crazy. Thank you guys for listening. And I'm sorry this video is not an hour long like usual, but like I said, it's hard to talk about this and get it right. There is no really right way to get it. But I did the best I could. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. And I'll talk to you about, like I said, whatever you guys... If you don't have anything in the comments that you want me to talk about, then I'll think of a topic on my own and make a new video. Because now that I know that people actually listen to this, I do want to make more of them. I did before, but I thought I had almost said everything I really wanted to say. But then I saw that people really enjoy this. So I'm like, now I want to. It's weird. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys next time, and don't forget to force.